webinar is for understanding the concept of acid-base balance and what happens when this acid-base balance is disturbed in the body, what are the consequences, and also let us understand how the body tries to combat it and come back to normalcy. What are the important diagnostic tests that are used to check if there is an acid-base imbalance in the body? Now, first, there is a very intriguing question. Whenever we talk about acid or base, we understand this is mostly related to chemistry. But in the body, there is a very interesting mechanism of how the body maintains these acids and bases. Now, our body has a very unique constitution where, for example, you take proteins. Proteins are made up of amino acids. Amino acids are very unique compounds which have both an acidic group and an amino group. So understand there itself that we have so many compounds which are combinations of both acids and bases. So how is the balance maintained? Now, in a chemistry lab, if you're working, we use what are called as buffers. Buffers are solutions that are used to maintain the pH of the solution. Similarly, in our body also, we have a very profound buffering system which controls this acid and base release and absorption in the body to maintain that pH. So let us understand some of these important concepts in this video. First, when you're talking, what is pH? Now, if you're talking about the term, this is defined as the negative logarithm of H plus ion concentration. Now, the question that we all might get, we understand it in solutions that you have a lot of H plus ions, but what about our body? As part of metabolism, there are so many reactions which release these H plus ions and which absorb these H plus ions even in human body. So, for example, you take your water system, H2O gives rise to H plus and OH minus ions. So, these H plus ions are very unique for the metabolism and chemical reactions in the body. So, a term that is also used to define the pH in the solutions we use it is this concentration of hydrogen ions. So we have a scale called as a pH scale that's basically used to measure the acids and the bases. So the scale ranges anywhere from 0 to 14. And in the laboratory, when we are testing with chemicals, what do we do to test the pH of a solution? We have what is called as a litmus paper. So this is a paper which is uniquely designed, which it acts like an indicator. So if you put it in a solution, depending upon the color change, if you will have the strip on which you will have the gradation given. So if the color changes to anywhere like a kind of yellow mustard, you will know that it is an acid. And if it is going into an alkaline range, the color changes to green. So the pH of the solution basically is the negative logarithm, which is taken as a base 10 of the hydrogen ion concentration. So this is the chemical formula used to define pH. pH is equal to minus log H plus ion concentration. So the pH scale ranges from 0 to 14. So anything from 0, 1, it is highly acidic. Now, as the H plus ion concentration keeps decreasing, the solution goes to neutrality. So 7 is considered as neutral. So solutions anywhere having a pH from 0 to 7, we call them as acidic. Now, those that range from 7 to 14, we call them as basic. And those that exactly have a pH of 7, we call them as neutral solutions. So depending upon the pH, you can divide the solutions into neutral, acidic, and basic. Again, in that you can say weakly acidic, strongly acidic, weakly basic, strongly basic. So if you look at some examples of solutions that we commonly come across and their pH range, sulfuric acid is a highly acidic. Its pH is about between 0 to 1. Now, surprisingly, our stomach works at a pH of 1 to 2. So we have a lot of stomach enzymes like your pepsin, trypsin, chymotrypsin. They all work in this highly acidic range. This is because of the presence of hydrochloric acid in the stomach. So we all have the parietal cells in the stomach lining which produce this acid. In fact, this production of acid is the impetus for the process of digestion. So understand that our stomach is highly acidic that aids in the digestion of most of your biomolecules. Then your tomatoes have a pH of 4, coffee 5. Now, what is a neutral solution that we commonly know? A freshly distilled water is a pH of 7. Saliva is at a pH of 7. You understand that most of our body fluids are not actually neutral, but they have a pH of anywhere between 7.3 to 7.4. So blood, our entire body works because of the transport that happens via blood. That has a pH of about 7.3 to 7.4. Similarly, tears also have a pH of 7.3 to 7.4. Now, all these, see, water is alkaline, highly alkaline is your bleach, ammonia. That means increasing basicity. That results in increasing alkalinity. Now, why are we talking so much about acid-base balance? Now, whenever there is a H plus ion increase or decrease, this will strongly impact our body. So there will be a lot of physiological changes in the concentration of H plus ions. And as I mentioned already, this is because of the various metabolic reactions that take place in our body. So if there is a systemic increase in the H plus ion concentrations, we call this as acidosis. If there is a decrease in H plus ion concentration, we call this as alkalosis. So increased H plus acidosis, decreased H plus alkalosis. So this acid-base range is very narrowly maintained. I mean, even if there is a 1 point increase in the H plus ion concentration, there will be a 10-fold change in the pH scale. So even that slight change in the pH will adversely affect our body. So we have to be very careful. Now, our systems are designed in such a way that they can take care of this. We will talk about what are all the measures that the body takes to maintain this. So understand that even a slight change in the H plus ion can bring changes in the cells and the tissues. So how does it do? Now, generally, the entire story of acid-base balance in the body runs around this: carbon dioxide, H plus ions, bicarbonate ions. This is the strongest buffering system that works in your blood, called as a bicarbonate carbonic acid buffering system. So there are various stages in which this acid-base balance is maintained in the body. So we have to understand, because H plus ions have a prominence inside the cellular metabolism, it is important to maintain the acid-base balance, because H plus ions are required to maintain the integrity of the biological membranes. They're associated with speeding up of the metabolic reactions. And any change in this pH will automatically affect the human body, resulting in various diseases. Because as I said, even a single fold change in the H plus pH will change the H plus ion concentrations 10 folds. So all your body systems that majorly are associated with blood, this buffering system, like your renal system, your blood, your hemoglobin, all of them will get impacted. How do we maintain this? So as I said, the normal pH of the blood is always 7.35 to 7.45, to be more precise. So it is slightly alkaline. Now, this pH range has to be maintained in the body. So this body has 3 lines of defense to regulate the body's acid-base balance. One is blood buffering system, respiratory mechanism, renal mechanism. So this works along with blood, respiratory system using lungs, and renal mechanism, which involves kidneys. So these are the important acid-base buffer systems in our body. First, when you're talking about the blood buffer system, this largely works with hemoglobin. What do we do? Now, I will give you a very simple example. Now, we all know our process of respiration. We breathe in oxygen, we breathe out carbon dioxide. Now, this particular levels of carbon dioxide that get circulated in the body will largely impact the concentration of H plus ions. Now, the moment you breathe in oxygen, the hemoglobin will bind to this, convert it into bicarbonate ions. So the blood bicarbonate buffer system will carry these bicarbonate ions via the hemoglobin, transport it to every nook and corner of the body. Understand that hemoglobin is a protein that is exclusively present in the blood. This is a protein that exists in its quaternary structure. And because of its quaternary structure, it works in a mechanism called as cooperativity. So it has 4 subunits in its structure, 2 alpha and 2 beta subunits. All these subunits together will ensure that they bind to more and more oxygen while you breathe, take it through the blood and deliver this oxygen to every capillary in your body. That is to this farthest part of your body, to even the tips of your fingers, ears, toes, everywhere the blood will supply oxygen. So it is not that they keep it only in the lungs and we release it from there. No, the more you breathe in oxygen, it goes to every part of the body. So once you inhale oxygen, it combines to with hemoglobin, forms bicarbonate ions, and that bicarbonate ions will travel, go to the capillaries, and from there is carbon dioxide that is picked up. Again, hemoglobin does this job of bringing back carbon dioxide and exhaling it through the lungs. When this process is happening normally, the bicarbonate buffering system in the blood will try to maintain the acid-base balance. Any disruption, even in your breathing rate, I mean, let's say you are in a disease condition where you are hyperventilated, I mean, you are in very strong physical exercise, you're in short of your breath, then let's say if you're breathing faster or you're breathing too slower, even in such mild conditions also, there is an alteration in the H plus ion concentration, excess carbon dioxide, which will result in certain disease, that temporary change in the pH. So even that slight changes in the pH will be monitored by the buffering systems in the body. So the first level of defense for this acid-base buffering is given by your blood system. So that works with the help of retention or excretion of H plus ions. Then, as I said, a buffering system along with your respiratory system. So how much amount of carbon dioxide is being sent out from the lungs and how much is being retained by the body. All this is maintained by this buffering system, which we call it as a carbonic acid bicarbonate buffering system. Very, very important buffer system. Then your kidneys will also do a job by maintaining the H plus and bicarbonate ions again. Now, what do they do in this process to maintain? They take in the system of, they take the help of other important ions which help in the maintenance of your membrane integrity, like sodium ions, potassium ions, chloride ions, because they're all along with your carbonate and the bicarbonate ions. The kidneys will receive a lot of other body fluids that will come for excretion, and a lot of other salts also are sent into the kidneys for excretion. So this ionic form of salts, carbonates, bicarbonates, H plus ions. So kidney have to take place the excretion and retention of all these, which will also impact your acid-base balance inside the body. So first we said hemoglobin. As I said, it will maintain whenever carbon dioxide is being taken out or taken in, they will convert it into carbonic acid, break it down into H plus ions and bicarbonate ions. And this is how hemoglobin will bind to it, convert it into carbonic acid and send it out of the body. So hemoglobin does your first level of management. So as long as your blood is working fine, your hemoglobin levels are good, you're not anemic, then generally your blood buffering system will take care that the acid-base balance is perfectly maintained. So that is the reason why we normally suggest that for any kind of a disease, your first level of maintenance is with proper breathing. So all of you should practice this concept of breathing normally. Take a deep breath. How you should imagine your lungs are able to take in a lot of oxygen, exhale out all the carbon dioxide. So all this is maintained with the help of your hemoglobin. Then as I said, your plasma proteins also play, because these are all plasma proteins are very important transport proteins. They are associated in transporting a lot of important substances inside the body. So these proteins will have amino acids. And because amino acids, when you look at a neutral pH, you look at the structure, the carboxylic group will have a H plus and NH will be in a positive condition. So that overall charge on the amino acid at a neutral pH is 0. That's why we generally call them as neutral amino acids. But if the R group is having a polar group, then they will be able to exhibit a kind of acid-base behavior with the changing pH. Because amino acids have both an amino group and a basic group. So generally when the pH decreases, that is as you move into acidic medium, then your ammonium ion retains its H plus ion. Therefore, the charge on the molecule will be +1, where it will be acting as a cation. Now, as you move, pH rises and you're going into an alkaline medium, the carboxylic group will start releasing its proton. So the overall charge on the molecule will be -1, where it gets converted into an anion. So these plasma proteins, because of the acid-base behavior of the amino acids, they will either release H plus ions or they will accept H plus ions. So naturally, they will have this ability to be associated with the buffering system. So if you take the example of an amino acid histidine, this is considered as a natural buffering system. And this histidine amino acid, that is the one that is also associated with your hemoglobin. So hemoglobin, when you look at the quaternary structure, it has a distal histidine. So histidine as an amino acid is acting as a natural buffer, and therefore it maintains your blood system to manage the H plus ion concentration. Then this H plus ion concentration in the blood also is maintained by your phosphate buffer. So phosphate buffers can be existing as a diphosphate or a monophosphate. So it can accept H plus ions and get converted into phosphoric acid or monophosphoric acid. Between these two, they will accept H plus ions or they will release H plus ions, thus maintaining the pH in the blood. So as we already discussed, this blood can act as a very good buffering system because it has hemoglobin. So whatever the carbon dioxide that is being accepted by your hemoglobin, it is converted into carbonic acid. And we have a very interesting enzyme called as carbonic anhydrase, which has the ability to convert this bicarbonate into carbonic acid into bicarbonate. So bicarbonate is carried into the lungs with the help of hemoglobin. So when the tissue cells produce carbon dioxide, it is accepted, sent into the lungs. There again, it will combine, form carbonic acid. Carbonic acid again is broken down into carbon dioxide. So because here hemoglobin releases carbon dioxide and this carbon dioxide is sent out from the body. So basically hemoglobin accepts oxygen, sends it to the capillaries. From those tissue cells where after delivering oxygen, whatever the carbon dioxide that has been produced there because of various metabolic reactions, that is accepted back, it is brought back to the lungs and sent out of the body. That's exactly what happens in your process of respiration. You breathe in oxygen, breathe out carbon dioxide. Now it is very simple for us to say you breathe in, breathe out, but in the process, understand how much of metabolic mechanism is happening and how many buffering systems are associated in maintaining this H plus ion concentration. So what happens in this levels of carbon dioxide? Initially, all the pH maintenance, we talk in terms of either carbon dioxide or in terms of H plus ions. So this carbon dioxide plus combines with water, forms carbonic acid, which is an acidic form. So increase of carbonic acid inside will change the pH to acid, or decrease in the carbonic acid will change the pH to alkaline. But generally, it is maintained with the help of your bicarbonate buffering system. So the same bicarbonates are sent back to kidneys and the renal system will work on this particular mechanism. So you look at the different pH of different body fluids, you will see that the arterial blood will have a slightly higher pH range due to less amount of carbonic acid, because arteries carry impure blood, veins carry pure blood. So veins will have lesser pH because it has more carbonic acid, because we are carrying pure oxygen. Then gastric juice, as I said, because of HCl, this is highly acidic. Pancreatic juice also has a higher pH because it produces a lot of bicarbonate ions. So if there is an increased bicarbonate ion, the pH increases. Cerebrospinal fluid, again, like your blood, around 7.32. Urine, 5 to 6, because there are a lot of H plus ions that are excreted from the waste products through the kidneys. So these are all the general pH levels in the body fluid. Again, all these are maintained exclusively because of the buffering system inside the body. So understand that pH has a lot of significance. All your normal body functions are largely associated with this pH. So if that pH change has to be very narrow. So anything around 7.2, 7.3, we are okay. But if it is anything less than 7.2, then you will see that the cell's functions are seriously impaired. If it is less than 7.35, it results in acidosis. Normal range is 7.35 to 45. Greater than this is called as alkalosis. If it is more than 7.55, you will see all the cell functions are affected. Greater than 7.8, highly incompatible. If it is less than 6.8, it is incompatible. If it is greater than 7.8, it is incompatible. So in between this, the ranges maintain, and your blood system, even without us having any knowledge about this, they will maintain. So this is an overview of how the acids and base balance is maintained in our body. So first, you will see any change, decrease in the pH, it will result in acidosis. Why will that happen? Whenever there is accumulation of acids or loss of bases. In either cases, there is increased concentration of H plus ions. When the concentration of H plus ion increases, this results in the decrease of pH, causing a metabolic condition called acidosis. Now, on the contrary, if there is loss of acids and accumulation of bases, the H plus ion concentration is decreased, resulting in the rise in the pH, which we call it as alkalosis. So in normal situations, your carbon dioxide transportation via the blood, lungs, and kidneys will maintain the pH. So whenever there is an increased carbonic acid, there is a decrease in the pH. So because it maintains that, it all works with carbon dioxide. If there is increased carbon dioxide in the blood, the pH is lower, because carbonic acid levels are lower. If there is decreased carbon dioxide, then carbonic acid levels increase, so the pH will increase. So your first line of defense against this shift in the pH is your chemical buffer system. That's your bicarbonate buffer system, phosphate buffer system, and protein buffer system. So the second line of defense is your physiological buffers. That's your respiratory mechanism, which ensures that the carbon dioxide is excreted. Then your renal mechanism, which ensures that the H plus ions are excreted. So the bottom line, we are understanding that the entire acid-base discussion runs around these carbon dioxide, concentrations of carbon dioxide and concentration of H plus ions. What happens if this H plus ion concentration or the carbon dioxide concentrations are increasing or decreasing? As I said, they basically, an increased accumulation of H plus ions results in a condition called acidosis. And when the blood pH declines below 7.3, we call the condition as acidemia. Increase alkalosis or alkalemia. Now, these conditions are highly related to, if the conditions are related only to your respiratory system, then we call them as respiratory acidosis or alkalosis. But if the change in the pH is happening because of your metabolic conditions related to kidneys, then we call them as metabolic acidosis or alkalosis. So overall, you have 4 types. That related to respiratory acidosis or respiratory alkalosis. If it is related to renal, we call it as metabolic acidosis, metabolic alkalosis. So a very simple understanding we will talk about. As I said, let's say when you're breathing in, there is oxygen. Now let's say oxygen goes into the capillaries, carbon dioxide is being brought back. Suppose you stop your breath for a while, if you just hold it for some time, what's happening? The carbon dioxide levels, because they are not being sent out of the body, the carbon dioxide levels will start getting accumulated in the body. Now, increased carbon dioxide levels will decrease the pH because carbonic acid formation is not happening. Therefore, there is decreased pH resulting in acidosis. So, which increases the respiration rate. Blood carbon dioxide decreases, blood bicarbonate decreases, therefore the pH will increase. On the contrary, now let's say you held your breath for some time and you released it. Then the moment you release your breath, you will start taking a deep breath. Now, why that hyperventilation happened? I mean, you want to take more and more breath because you want to exhaust or send off all the carbon dioxide and breathe in more oxygen. In those conditions, when there is excess carbon dioxide that is sent out of the body, let's say that is in conditions like hyperventilation, then what will happen? There is excess carbon dioxide that is sent out from the body. Therefore, the pH will drastically decrease, resulting in a condition called as alkalosis. So in that short gap of your breath being held and breath being released, you will see that there is a drastic change in the pH. But we are talking about a situation where it is only a minor change. But imagine if a condition like this exists for a longer time, then this acid-base homeostasis is not restored, resulting in either a continued increase in the pH or a continued decrease in the pH, resulting in conditions like acidosis or alkalosis. So these two, either of the situations are extremely dangerous to the body when not treated or understood. So in metabolic acidosis, you will basically see that the plasma bicarbonate is drastically decreased. Why does this happen? This happens because of exogenous acid administration or endogenous acid production or impaired renal H plus ion secretion or bicarbonate losses from the kidney or gastrointestinal tract. But in the body, we have what are called as compensatory mechanisms. So what is this compensatory mechanism? They will try to compensate this increase or decrease in the pH. So in the metabolic acidosis, because the compensatory mechanism is associated, they will mildly manage as long as there is acidosis, or they will try to manage it by decreasing the pH, bicarbonate, and the partial pressure of carbon dioxide. What will the compensatory mechanism do? Lungs will blow off carbon dioxide to raise the pH. Why? In conditions there where there is accumulation of carbon dioxide, the plasma bicarbonate is decreasing, resulting in all these changes. So your bicarbonate to carbonic acid ratio is changing by about 10:1. So this change is controlled with the compensatory mechanism because lungs will blow off the carbon dioxide to rise the pH. And then automatically the compensation takes place and the pH will come back to normal. So conditions like diabetes, where there is a diarrhea, renal failure, liver diseases, sepsis, in all these conditions, you will see that there is a cause like this happening, but your body will try to do the compensatory mechanism. The opposite happens when you're talking about metabolic alkalosis. So you will see that the plasma bicarbonate levels are increased, which can be because of the loss of chloride ions or excess ingestion of sodium bicarbonate. So how does the compensatory mechanism work? So it will hold the breath. Now earlier it released carbon dioxide. Now it will try to hold carbon dioxide. So the lungs will retain carbon dioxide, so the pH is lowered. So in acidosis, the problem is the pH is increased because the carbon dioxide levels are increased here, or more excess carbon dioxide is left out. Here we are trying to retain carbon dioxide, so therefore there is a compensation happening. Now in conditions like prolonged vomiting or bicarbonate ingestion, so all this you should understand that there are a lot of drugs that will also, I mean, when you take an excess medication, even if it is like a small painkiller like aspirin, it can drastically change the acid-base behavior inside your body. So you will understand, this is the summary that you can see what happens in your clinical conditions of acidosis. When you have acute metabolic acidosis, you will see that the pH is decreased. Bicarbonate ions decreased, but carbon dioxide levels are normal. So in compensation, what are we trying to do? We are trying to bring back the pH to normal by decreasing the carbon dioxide concentration. So if it is respiratory acidosis, you will see the pH is decreased, but there is no change in the bicarbonate ions and the carbon dioxide concentrations are increased. So compensatory mechanisms take place in respiratory acidosis, where we are trying to increase the bicarbonate so that more and more of carbon dioxide is accepted and the pH comes back to normal. So here you will see metabolic and respiratory acidosis, you will have low pH, low bicarbonate, high carbon dioxide. If it is alkalosis, on the contrary, you will have high pH, high bicarbonate, and low carbon dioxide concentrations. So ultimately, the story runs around all these three: carbon dioxide, H plus ions, and bicarbonate. So what are the values that you need to concentrate on? pH, this will talk about the increased pH value alkalosis, decreased pH value acidosis. Why partial pressure of carbon dioxide is important? Because this is an indication of ventilation. So as I said, when you are hyperventilating or hypoventilating, in either situations, the carbon dioxide levels will alter, resulting in a change in your pH. Again, same thing, oxygen. If there is lesser oxygen, automatically you should understand that there is more carbon dioxide that is being produced. therefore resulting in conditions like hypoxia. So all these conditions will maintain your acid-base balance. Now, there is a particular test very importantly done to assess your acid-base balance inside the body. This is called as arterial blood gas test, or it is ABG test. So an arterial blood gas test is a blood test that requires a sample from an artery. It will measure the levels of oxygen and carbon dioxide in your blood. So this will also help check the balance of acids and bases, which is, we call it as the pH balance in your blood. So there are various parameters that are assessed in your arterial blood gas test. So first you check the oxygen content, pH, partial pressure of carbon dioxide, partial pressure of oxygen, bicarbonate ions, and oxygen saturation. So here you will see these are all the normal ranges. So our normal pH, we are talking about 7.35 to 7.45. So the partial pressure of carbon dioxide, oxygen, they're all measured, and the levels of bicarbonate ions are also assessed. So you need here, these are the parameters, important parameters that is it. So oxygen content, this will measure the amount of oxygen in your blood. Hemoglobin, this will measure the amount of hemoglobin. As I said, as long as the levels of hemoglobin are good, they will ensure that there is proper carrying of oxygen and removal of carbon dioxide. Oxygen saturation, this talks about how much hemoglobin in your blood is carrying oxygen. So this is a protein in your red blood cells that carries oxygen from your lungs to the rest of your body. Then partial pressure of oxygen, very important because this measures the pressure of oxygen dissolved in your blood. That means when oxygen saturation is, how much oxygen is being carried by your hemoglobin. Now, if the pressure of oxygen dissolved in your blood, this shows how well oxygen moves from your lungs to your bloodstream. So the more dissolved oxygen, the better it is absorbed by the tissues. Then partial pressure of carbon dioxide, this talks about how much carbon dioxide is there in your blood and how well it is moved out of your body. So two primary things that we all need to understand in this context, that oxygen is taken and also carbon dioxide is brought back. Both jobs are done by your hemoglobin. So pH, this measures the balance of acid and bases, called as the blood pH level. So usually between 7.35 to 7.4. Then bicarbonate, this is calculated because the measured values of pH and partial pressure of carbon dioxide determine how much amount of bicarbonate is being made from carbon dioxide. So the levels are associated with each other. So why do you get an ABG test done? Basically, whenever you observe that there is a respiratory problem, anything that is associated with your impaired lung function, when you see there is a difficulty in breathing, when you have conditions like nausea, vomiting, confusion, anything in such situations normally suggest that there is an issue with your respiratory system. So let's say when you have suggestive symptoms like breathing problems or oxygen shortage, as I said, you're finding it difficult to breathe. Generally, what happens in most of these surgeries, post-surgery, the body takes some time to come back to normalcy, or when you have a specific therapies where there is a oxygen supplementation therapy, blood transfusion therapies. In these situations also, you will see that your body is trying to struggle to adjust, accommodate between your oxygen and carbon dioxide levels. So in such situations, we did this. So you can assess the lung function and associated diseases. Basically, very important because you can detect the acid-base imbalance and effectiveness of oxygen therapy. In all these situations, you get an ABG test done. So you take the blood from your ulnar artery in this arterial blood samples. Now you will see generally the normal pH should be about 7.4. If there is a decrease in the pH, we call this as acidosis. Increase in the pH, you call this as alkalosis. So the conditions can be metabolic acidosis, respiratory acidosis. So metabolic acidosis, the carbon dioxide, partial pressure of carbon dioxide is also altered. But to maintain this, you have respiratory compensation, where you will see that the partial pressure of carbon dioxide is reduced, and therefore the respiratory system will try to compensate it. Whereas respiratory acidosis, you will see that there is a renal compensation that takes place, In either cases, I mean, they will try to, if the blood is not able to maintain, then you will see that the kidneys will try to compensate. If the kidneys are not able to maintain, you will see that the respiratory system will try to do the compensation. So in either cases, you will see that it is maintained. Now here, if it is acidosis, we said the pH will decrease. That is because of the increased concentrations of bicarbonate ions. So there is a compensation where the bicarbonate ion concentrations are increased. Metabolic alkalosis, you will see the carbon dioxide partial pressure is decreased less than 40 mm per mercury. So you will see that the partial pressure of carbon dioxide is tried to be increased with the help of compensation. Then in alkalosis, again, renal compensation takes place where the bicarbonate levels are monitored. So you will see that overall the blood gases are maintained, the levels are measured, and they will try to check the compensations and then monitor how much this ABG values are being altered and how they are being compensated, right? So all these are the situations that will help us understand the acid-base balance in the body. And ABG by far is a very, very important test that talks about the importance of maintaining the acid-base balance inside the body. And then any kind of alteration that is happening to this will alter your metabolic functions. So what is the summary of what we try to understand? Basically, three important factors that control the acid-base levels in the body: carbon dioxide levels, H plus ion concentration, and because these two are associated, the bicarbonate levels. All these are maintained with the help of three levels of buffering systems: blood buffer system, renal buffer system, or the hemoglobin. All these three will help in maintaining it. So your bicarbonate buffer system that works very effectively in the blood will ensure that hemoglobin carries oxygen, brings back carbon dioxide. In the process, there is formation of bicarbonate, breaking down of carbonic acid. That levels were greatly monitored. Now, if any alteration is happening and your cells, there is a minute difference, and if the kidneys are not able to effectively excrete the excess H plus ions or retain the H plus ions, then you will see that either of them will try to compensate. Either there is a respiratory compensation or a renal compensation that takes place in the body. So imagine there is a condition that's happening when your blood buffering system did not effectively work, and then there is a H plus ion concentration that is deviating, automatically your renal system will come into picture. So your kidneys will measure how much amount of H plus ion, excess H plus ions are being produced or released. So they will try to retain, they will check which metabolic system is not effectively functioning and excreting more H plus ions. So that kidney system will try to maintain. So it will have a proximal tissues in between the interstitium and the proximal tissue. It will try to maintain the Na plus ions, K plus ions, Cl minus ions, and H plus ions. So all the ionic balance and imbalance is taken care by the kidneys. So either your blood system or your kidney system will ensure that there is a proper acid-base balance that is maintained inside the cells. So as long as your cells are working fine and your compensatory systems are trying to manage the H plus ion concentration, there is no acid-base imbalance. But any of this goes wrong, that's when you will observe that there are metabolic conditions like acidosis or alkalosis that will occur. And sometimes you will see that if there is continued acidosis or continued alkalosis, it might also result in death. So sometimes the situations will lead to excess fatality rate also. So we have to keep monitoring and all this control. Now, internally, we may not be able to check what is happening with our buffering system, because as such, we don't have any indicators. We don't, except for these kind of tests, we don't have any day-to-day indicators which will tell what is the pH today, now, at this point of time. You may not be able to measure it like that, but understand that your control over your breath is something that probably will help you maintain good acid-base balance. So make sure that whenever you are spending some time, do a conscious breathing. Make sure that you are maintaining your oxygen levels and you're breathing out the carbon dioxide, so that you're supporting your body metabolism and you're making sure that your lines of defense, like your first line, second line of defense, as we have seen, there are certain situations where you will see the body will try to fight. Here you have chemical buffering systems and also physiological buffering systems. Your respiratory systems, renal systems, they will try to make sure that your body's acid-base balance is maintained. So consciously, you can, by external breathing, try to monitor, but inside your body does this wonderful job of maintaining any slight difference in the acid-base changes. So your carbon dioxide concentrations, H+ concentrations, bicarbonate ion concentrations are smartly maintained by the cells with the help of the compensatory mechanisms. Thank you.